Okay, let's look at the 3 outline stitches that come with Designer Plus only. So down in the outlines on the left hand side, and their object properties obviously, so down in the left hand side at the bottom here you've got all your outline stitches, and Designer Plus has 3 more that Creator Level don't have. There's the black work, there's Candlewicking, and there's pattern run. I'm going to start with the Candlewicking, so I'll left click on that, so I've selected it. I'm going to create an open object to start with, and I'm just going to do some left and right clicks to create a curved line and enter. And I'm out of true view, so let's go to true view. They're blue. I'm going to make them red. There we go. And we can zoom in. Now, with Candlewicking, just like your other outline stitches, there is a default size and spacing. So if I right click on this border, I can go to the object properties and it will show that I'm in the Candlewicking border, and it's showing that I'm using pattern Colonial 4.5 millimeters. And the size is 4.5, which makes sense because that's the part in the name. But the spacing is 7.99. That's why there's a gap between each candle wick. Now, if I go out of true view again and I have my connectors showing, I can see that there are jump stitches between each of those candle wicks, and there are tie offs and tie ins. So a tie in at the beginning and a tie off at the end. The little triangle is the tie off, the little circle is the tie in. So this, it will stitch, default stitch, will stitch a candle wick, sorry, tie in, stitch a candle wick, tie off, move to the next candle wick, tie in, stitch the candle wick, tie off, and so on. So it's quite slow to stitch out like that, but if that's what the look you want a gap between your candle wicks, that's what you will need to consider. It's going to take a while to stitch out. Now, there are 4 different sized candle wicks. So if you go to the select button here, you can choose. So as I said, the default is the 4.5 millimeter. That's 4.5 millimeters across from one side to the other. And then there is a 4 millimeter, so that's very slightly smaller. Looks the same but just a little bit smaller. So, and then there's a half knot 3.5 millimeters, so that's smaller again, but it's a half knot, so there aren't quite as many stitches in that. It's a flatter candlewick style. It doesn't raise up in a mound like these 2 stitches do when you stitch them out. And then there's the knot, which is 3 millimeters, and that's the smallest one. So rather than change the size of your candlewick, maybe consider choosing one that's the correct size. They all look the same size here in the display, but underneath it tells you how big they are. So I could choose the half knot, for instance, and apply that to my line, and you'll notice that the half knot doesn't have any gaps because the spacing is the same as the size of the half knot. Let's go to true view to see what that looks like. If you want a spacing between, you can do that by increasing the spacing size. So if I double the spacing size compared to the size of the knot, I make it 7 millimeters, there will be a gap the same size as the knot in between. So I'll make that 7 millimeters and apply that. And you can see the gap. But again, if I go out of true view, you're going to get tie-ins and tie-offs. Just bear that in mind. You can create a smaller gap. Remember, our machine won't tie in and tie off if the gap is 2 millimeters or less. So let's try a gap that's 2 millimeters bigger than the size. So 5.5. and apply that. 2 millimeters is just too much. I need to come down a little bit. So let's go 5.25 and apply that. And now I've got jumps but no tie-ins or tie-offs because they are very small jumps, and once you get small enough, under 2 millimeters obviously, just, then so this would be a lot quicker to stitch, but you would still have small gaps between the Candlewicking. But if we go to true view, you will see a jump between them. So you need to play around with the settings here to get the look you want. And again, as I do with as I suggest to beginners, is with your smallest hoop, even that tiny little hoop that comes with your Berninas, you can just digitize small samples of your knots at different sizes and different spacings. I'll probably make them in the little square hoop or rectangular hoop. So you can do a variety of choices, and you can then have a reference that's actually stitched out so you can see what it's like. But you do get a fairly good visual on the true view on the Bernina software. Right, so they are basically your options. You can change the size. That's not set in concrete either. But when you change the size of Candlewicking, let's just go back to the 4.5 one and apply that. And of course my spacing is gone now. Why is that 4.49? It's 1/100th of a millimetre smaller. Let's make that 4.5 just to get it exactly right. And let's make that, I think that was 7. Apply that. Okay, so we've got a gap between, and as 7 is 4.5, 2.5. I don't know why it's not showing the jump. Because it's tying in and tying off. Yes, so we've got gaps, but it's tying in and tying off. All right, so while that's selected, we can go, I'll go into out of true view so you can see it. I'll zoom in. Oh, not quite that far, about there. And I'm going to change the background to blue so you can actually see the needle points. I've got my needle points showing, but it's really hard against this pale background to see them. So I'll go design, background and display colors, and I'll just edit this to that light blue and go OK. Now you can see those needle points. When I change the size, so let's go 6.5 for instance, and apply that. Oh, I've got to select it first. 6.5 and apply that. You can see my jumps are very tiny, so because I didn't change the spacing, so there's no tie-ins or tie-offs. But I've got 6.5 millimetre long stitches because no more stitches have been added in along the length of here. That's the way they're designed. They're designed with a stitch at each point, and that is not changeable. So if you go too big, you're going to have very long stitches, is what I'm saying, and there could be quite a bit of pull and drag. You'd really need to test sew if you're going to go a lot bigger than the standard Candlewicking size. Okay, now it would be remiss of me if I didn't show you the reshaping options with this outline as well at the same time as I'm doing the object properties, because all of this works in harmony. So I'm going to undo back to this. So now what have I got? I've got the Colonial 4.5 with a tie-in and tie-off at each end. Okay, now I'm just going to close that for the moment, and I'm going, while it's selected, I'm going to the Reshape tool. Now with the Reshape tool, I'll zoom out, you do have your normal Reshape nodes that you use to digitize. I'm going to change the color back. I'd wish that in the background and display colors you could just press a button to get it back to the same color, but that it was before. Oh, here we are, recent colors. That was the original. No, that was one I was playing around with. It'd be nice if there was a button to go back to the original color, but this one's pretty close, so I'll just go OK. It's a bit bright, sorry, but the reason I did that was when I select this and go to the Reshape tool, I can see my aqua nodes, because if I've got a blue background, it's very hard to see them. So I've got my square node here where I started. I've got an aqua node there and there and there, and I've got my square node at the end. So you can reshape your curve, or you can add nodes by left clicking for a square node, right clicking for a round node. So if I put another round node here and put it down, you can still reshape the actual outline as you please, just like with any other object. But you have lots of other tools as well. So let's zoom into this Candlewick here. And actually you don't have lots, but you have immediately, but you have a little pink diamond at each Candlewick. So you can select those. When you select the pink diamond, it's a little bit like lettering these tools when you select a single letter or doing lettering. So if you haven't watched my lettering videos, you might want to do that. You can select each letter with a pink node, pink diamond as well. This pink diamond allows you to move that Candlewick along in relation to the others. It also allows you to increase or decrease the individual size of that Candlewick. You can stretch it out sideways, you can stretch it out height-wise independently, or you can change the size with this one proportionately. This one allows you to put it on an italic or an angle, and I'll just undo that. And this one, oh no, actually I will redo that because you won't be able to tell otherwise. This one here, is the circle, is your rotation. So you can rotate that around, bearing in mind that the start and end points remain the same. So if you haven't got tie-ins, tie-offs, and you rotate, your jump stitches will go at funny angles. But it's worth playing around with all those tools to see what they do and see where, at the moment you might not be able to think of a use for those, but there are some times when you want to do it. You might only have a few Candlewicks that you want to fit in a certain area, you want to distort something. So you need to know they're there basically, and that you can do this sort of thing with your tools. Okay, now let's do a closed object. So I'll select that one and delete it and choose our closed object. Should go back to the default. That's just a random shape. Okay, should have gone back to the default if I select it, the default object properties. Let's have a look. Yes, oh no, it's gone to the 6.5. So I'm going to put that back to the 4.5 and enter, apply. That's better. So I've got my tie-ins and tie-offs back again. So if I go to true view, there is no jumps between those. But you can see when you get to sharp corners, and the same would apply to an open object with a very sharp corner, your Candlewicks can get too close together and overlap. Now, I'll just close that for the moment. This is where the reshaping tool helps, because you can go to the reshape tool and I could get that pink diamond and just move that Candlewick a little bit further over. However, if you're not careful, you'll get the jump stitch. So you might need to move this one a little bit over. Now I've lost that jump stitch. You might want to put a Candlewick right on a corner. So you might want to move that one to the corner and then move each one near it a little bit closer so that it's not so obvious that you've moved one. So you just keep going back till you find that you've got an even, fairly even spacing between them. Here's another example where they're overlapping, so I would have to move this, but if I move this back here it's going to overlap with that one. So you need to consider all this when you're doing your shapes. You might then decide, well, if I bring this out with a round node a little bit, it's going to move the candle wicks a bit because they are spaced out as evenly as they can be, so I might need to just pull this one back a bit, but they're not overlapping anymore. So a little bit of tweaking can happen to get the candle wicks sitting where you want them. And of course, because I moved that, this side over here is now mucked up again, so I'll put this one back over here and move these up a little bit. So it's not as straightforward. If you have no gap at all, then they will butt up against each other all the way round. So then it's your overlapping can be a bit problematic as well. So sometimes, even though you want a closed shape, you might need to digitize an open shape so that you can control those candle wicks. So if I redid this shape, well, I'm going to use the knife to cut it, but if I did this shape again, let's go to Edit, Cut, and cut through there, and Enter. Now, when I go to the Reshape tool, I should be able to separate these two nodes. There we go. So I can bring this one down here, and I can bring this one up here. So if I wanted a candle wick right here in a corner, I could bring this one down a bit further. And now I've got a candle wick right on the point, but all my other candle wicks have stayed in the space. So as I said, sometimes it's better to create an open object even though it's going to look like it's closed. Over here it might be the same thing. I might want to select it, get my knife, cut through that point there and Enter, and then go to the Reshape tool, and I can bring that one over there. This is a separate object, so that one's selected. I need to select this one and get my Reshape tool, because I've now got, if I go to individual objects, I've now got two separate objects because I've cut twice. But I can bring this up to here, and I can even go up to there. So even though it's not the original shape, I've created a semblance of that shape by creating open objects, and that allows me to put my candle wick right on the corner. Here I could, because it's only a little bit, although if I move this one to here, let's see what happens. If I move that one to there, it's a bit close to this one, so I'd have to move it back, but that might work. Oh, now I've got a jump stitch there, so now I'm right. That's a little bit more even. So with a less acute angle, you might be able to get away with just moving the candle wicks, but with the really sharp angles you might have to create more than one object to get the look just the way you want it. Now I've gone on a long way with candle wicking borders here in this video, so I think I'll call it quits here and make separate videos for the black work and the pattern runs. Although they have similar properties and work in similar ways, I'd rather do them as a separate video. So I hope you enjoyed this one, and once I've been through all the outlines and all the fills for both the Creator level and the Designer Plus level, I will use them to create some designs so that you can see more practical uses for this theory, really. Okay, if you've got any questions, please put them in the comments below. I don't always cover every single thing because I'd be here forever, so it's better if you ask me and then I can focus on exactly what you want to know. Great. I'll catch you in the next video.